Hello, this is Ben Moore, Finance Manager for the Office of Community Assistance, and this video will help walk through an overview of the budget submission process for the 2022 OCA grants. Grantees must register and pre-qualify on the GATA Grantee portal at www.grants.illinois.gov, including completion of the FY22 Internal Control Questionnaire known as the ICQ. Grantees must also complete the 2022 Program Risk Assessment, or PRAC, for both the LIHEAP and weatherization programs. And the links for those PRACs are included here on this slide. Grantees then must make an FY22 indirect cost rate election on the CARS system. And please note that this is required even if you're not planning on claiming indirect costs for FY22. You still need to indicate that you will not be claiming indirect costs. Grantees must complete and upload the following documents for each grant to the OCA ExtraNet application library for IWOP grants and the STARS document library for LIHEAP and weatherization grants. For the LIHEAP and weatherization grants, these documents must be uploaded by Friday, April 9th, 2021. Documents required to be uploaded for each grant. The first document is the Uniform Application for State Grant Assistance, the completed Uniform Grant Budget Template Spreadsheet, the signed and dated Budget Certification tab as a PDF, not as an Excel document, and you must also upload supporting documentation for any indirect costs that are budgeted. Additional documents required to be uploaded. A DCO conflict of interest disclosure form and a DCO mandatory disclosure form must be uploaded for each separate program. For this current cycle, one for LIHEAP and one for weatherization will be required. And any additional program-specific documents must be uploaded there too. An example of that would be the implementation plans that are required for each program. All required documents have been uploaded to the OCA ExtraNet OCA Communications Library and can be downloaded from that location. Document file name should start with a grant number when you upload them to appropriate location. Important GATA process reminders. Grantees must be pre-qualified on the GATA Grantee Portal website prior to submitting a grant application for FY22 funding. You need to verify that your fee and your DUNS on the GATA Grantee Portal match GRS. GRS includes an edit that will prevent any transactions if the fee or the DUNS combination pre-qualified on the GATA website does not match what is in eGrants or GRS systems for your organization. This will prevent you from submitting any cash requests or from OCA processing any new grants or any modifications to existing grants. A sample of what an error might look like if you have this situation occur will be that it will display that your fee is not GATA pre-qualified and not processed, meaning that whatever transaction you attempted to do, which would likely be a cash request, say that it was not processed. So please make sure that all your information on the GATA portal matches GRS to ensure that you don't have this problem. Here is a screenshot of a portion of the GATA Grantee portal. This is the pre-application information section, and these statuses here in this particular example, they all say good, which is the way you want your information to display. So this is a good place to check to make sure that you are appropriately pre-qualified. If any of these items don't say good, you likely have something that you need to complete before your grantee or before your organization is pre-qualified. Here are a few more important GATA process reminders. You need to ensure that an indirect cost selection has been made in the CARS system. Again, even if you are electing not to claim indirect costs, you still need to make that election on the CARS system. DCO accounting will not process your grant if you have not made a current year selection. Again, even if you're not claiming indirect costs, you still need to submit your election on that system, or it will prevent your grant from being processed. After you have successfully been pre-qualified, you will be directed via email to complete a web-based internal control questionnaire, again, ICQ. Remember that the ICQ is for your whole organization, not just for a particular program. You need to ensure that you clearly understand the questions when responding to the questionnaire, and the responses that indicate high risk will result in grant conditions once we execute your grant. So please pay particular attention to the questions when you're completing the ICQ and make sure you respond accurately to those. The Program Risk Assessment Questionnaire, a PRAC, must also be completed. Remember, you need to complete one of those for each program, OCA program that you are applying for grants. In the spring, you will submit your IWOP and your LIHEAP PRAC, and in the fall, you will need to submit your CSBG PRAC. You need to ensure that the responses to the questions on the PRAC accurately reflect how you operate the program specific to that PRAC, not necessarily your organization as a whole. So please keep that in mind as you're responding, because the answers could be different depending on which program you're responding to. Also note that incorrectly responding to PRAC questions may also result in special conditions on your grant. The 2022 grant budgets will follow the GATA requirements. It's similar to the process that was used for the 2021 grants. The budgets will be submitted using the GATA budget template spreadsheet. There really have been no major changes in the other GATA documents for 2022. The grantee allocations have been distributed via email along with the procedure letter for each program. You must provide specific itemization of cost in each category or tab of the spreadsheet, so keep that in mind as you complete that document. So the spreadsheet has been customized for clarity and ease of entry. Section A tab, which we refer to as the budget summary tab. For that tab, we have the GRS budget line item numbers used as opposed to the 1 through 17 line items that were utilized in the initial template that GATA provided. So we've tried to customize this so that it more closely corresponds to our OCA grant numbers and budget line items. We have color-coded the spreadsheet to correspond to the different categories we utilize, that being program support, client benefits, and administration. We have included subtotals by OCA budget category. As I said, program support, client benefits, and admin, to try to help you ensure that you stay within any allowed maximums for each of those categories. We've also added a budget checker to ensure that your allocation is not exceeded. Completion of the budget checker section will be required. Do not submit your budget spreadsheet until there are no alerts regarding allocation limits. For the individual budget category tabs, they are color-coded again to correspond to OCA budget categories. The tabs for categories that make up program support are clearly marked with a PS so that you don't get them confused with the administration tabs. All totals, again, have been rounded to the nearest dollar to avoid any rounding errors that would prevent your spreadsheet from matching. Here's a screenshot of what the tab A, or what we call the budget summary tab, looks like. As mentioned in the previous slide, to the right here is the budget checker, where the grantee enters the allocation information that OCA provides, and completing that information will help ensure that your total allocation or any specific category limits are not exceeded. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of these fields on the next slides, but all of the yellow cells need to be completed by the grantee. The rest of the spreadsheet has formulas that are all calculated, so no entry is needed. So for your allocation, the 2022 IWOP and LIHEAP grant funding allocations for your agency should be utilized when completing the uniform budget template spreadsheet for your grant. Based on your agency's allocations, enter the detailed cost you wish to budget for each category on the individual tabs of the budget spreadsheet. Please note that you do not enter budgeted amounts in the Section A tab that I showed on the previous slide. On that budget summary, as this tab contains formulas that draw from the amounts from the individual tabs in the spreadsheet. So you need to utilize the formulas that are on the budget tabs. Although the data entry grids and some of the individual tabs may not be formatted specifically for all varieties of costs you need to enter, please make any necessary adjustments to accurately calculate the total cost you intend for each line item entered, and add a very clear explanation in the narrative section for any adjustments or assumptions made in entering the costs. Please note that the provided formulas in the final cost column to the far right of the cost grid must be utilized if they're there, and they should not be altered. So don't put in any hard-coded numbers in the total column if there's a formula there. That will be an automatic reason for us to have to kick that budget back to you. So please don't overwrite any of the formulas. The narratives. In the narrative section of each cost category tab, please provide very clear comments regarding how the costs were calculated or any other information that may help support the cost entered. In all cases, if costs are direct and shared between different grant programs, you must explain how the costs were allocated across grants. The indirect cost allocation. Again, grantees are required to provide information regarding indirect costs on the Section A-ICI tab in the budget template for each grant, and ICI stands for indirect cost information. So the budget checker that has been included on Section A tab. So you need to fill this out first before completing the individual budget tabs. The budget checker feature is included on the Section A tab, again to the right of the budget summary, to assist grantees in verifying that the maximum allowed budget allocations for this grant are not exceeded. The budget checker must be completed with no alerts prior to submission to OCA. Please follow the step-by-step instructions included in the section on tab A to complete the checker. Fill in only the yellow highlighted cells on this tab. So program support, which consists of all of the 100 series line items. Program support is divided into multiple line items within GRS and the budget spreadsheet. Each of the budget categories below represent a budget line item in GRS. You may not need to utilize all tabs as defined below, because there may be categories that you just do not wish to budget costs in. But in any case, you should utilize the line-by-line guide, the budget definitions, and other resource documents to help determine the most appropriate line or tab to budget the costs. Only include items on the miscellaneous tab if they do not have a more fitting tab elsewhere in the program support 100 lines or in the 300 series of administration lines. So client assistance, which consists of the 200 series of budget line items. For ILOC, those are client assistance material and labor, which is budget line item 201. Health and safety client assistance, which is budget line item 202. For LIHEAP, they are client assistance client benefits, which is 201. Client assistance assurance 16, which is budget line item 202. The administrative costs can consist of all 300 budget line items. The total of all direct administrative costs, line 301 through 314, and the indirect costs, which are contained in budget line item 317 from the budget summary tab, those combined cannot exceed the total administrative allocation for your grantee for that grant. The direct administrative costs are contained in lines 301 through 314. Again, direct admin is now also divided into multiple line items within GRS and the budget spreadsheet. Each of the budget categories below represent a budget line item in GRS. These categories mirror those in the program support section. They are 01 is personnel, 02 is fringe, 03 is travel, 04 is equipment, 5 is supplies, 6 is contractual, 7 is consultant, 9, A and B are occupancy rent and occupancy utilities, and they appear as one line item, which is 109 in GRS. They're just broken up on the spreadsheet between rent and utilities for clarity. Communications is 11, training and education is 12, miscellaneous is 14, and again, these line items are replicated. The first digits would be 1 for program support and 3 if they're in the administrative category. Indirect costs, which are line item 317. So indirect costs should be entered on the indirect cost tab, which will transfer to line 317 on the Section A budget summary tab. If you elected to be reimbursed for indirect costs, you must provide documentation to support the rate that you're claiming. Supporting documentation for indirect costs claimed must be uploaded to the STARS document library for MyHeap and CSBG or the OCA extranet application library for the weatherization grants, along with other application documents. Original signatures are preferred, but given the current circumstances of many grantee staff working remotely due to COVID-19, DCO is accepting email authorization of stamped or electronic signatures. If an electronic signature is used, these steps must be followed. First, you need to attach a stamped or electronic signature on the grant document. You need to have the authorized signatory for that grant send an email to OCA stating the following, and we've put some very specific language here, but essentially it is an attestation that the authorized signatory for that grant is approving the electronic signature for that grant. If you wish to assign an authorized designee, you need to have the authorized signatory send an email including the following language, and again, it's language that has the authorized signatory certifying that they desire to establish a certain person as a designee for a grant, and you need to have the specific grant number along with the person's name included in that email. So as far as establishing authorized designees, it's optional, and there are 2 options as far as how to designate that authorized designee. So the first way you can do it is when you're submitting the grant application, you would complete the authorized designee section of the grant document at the time the grantee director signs the grant. Or the second option is after the grant has been executed, you can complete a notification of additional authorized designee form at any time after the grant is signed by the grantee director. Special note on that, each authorized designee must be designated each program year for each separate grant for which that person is authorized to sign the grant document. So 2 things. One, once you authorize a designee, that's not permanent. It's only for the current year, and it is not for all grants with your agency. It is done on a grant-by-grant basis. So please keep that in mind if you choose to have authorized designees. So the budget review and grant processing steps. So here is how the process works at OCA. So OCA staff and DCO accounting staff review and approve the uniform budget for each grant. Then after that happens, an automated email will be sent from the GATA grantee portal regarding a pending notice of state award, what we refer to as a NOSA, which must be electronically accepted by the grantee before OCA can continue to process the grant. OCA will email the notice of grant award to the grantee for signature once the NOSA is accepted by the grantee. That concludes our overview of the grant submission process. I'd like to remind you that there are separate videos available as guides to completing each of the individual cost tabs in the budget spreadsheet, and I would invite you to watch those videos as well, and thank you for watching.